Greetings, everyone. This is Pamela Lorenzo, your host of the Leader What Podcast. Today, I have again one of my favorite guests of all time on my podcast, my good friend, very good friend, Catherine Cooper, and of course, the one and only Jayden in the house
Yay.
for episode. I believe it's episode 9 with Catherine. And each time I talk to Catherine, we have beautiful conversations. She has so much wisdom, beautiful, incredible gifts to share, and this is why she's been coming back and 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 again, time and time again. So this morning here in KL is Tuesday, September 5th, 8:58 a.m. For you, it's Monday night. It's what is it? It's 7:58 p.m. for you, just 8 o'clock.
That's right.
All right. And we're going to be talking about being raised as by a single parent. So that's a powerful topic. And again, Catherine, welcome back to the show, my friend, and Jayden, of course.
Well, thank you. We're so glad to be here, even
Absolutely.
though it's about the end of the day for us and the beginning of the day for you.
Yeah, but that's good. Jayden, how are you doing, buddy?
He said, "I'm just hanging out. I took a chill pill." So he said, "I'm getting ready to go to bed."
I don't know what's looking to his right. He must have seen something. What are you looking at?
Yeah, he's watching the phone because I have it sitting on me,
Ah,
and
okay.
so he's watching you.
Okay,
You
wow.
better watch out now. Yeah, you better
Yes.
watch out now.
Yes, I need that.
Jayden's got his eye on you. He's got
Yeah.
his eye on you.
I'll be good, Jayden. Be 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 nice on me. Be easy on me.
Yeah.
How about you, Catherine?
Yeah.
How are you doing? How are our things since the last time we spoke last week?
Well, they're interesting, but we're having very, very hot weather this week,
Again?
which I really, oh yes, it's just awful. Yesterday they had an argument as to whether it was 95 or 98, and today we're having a cooling off at 90.
Oh wow.
And tomorrow, I think our high tomorrow is like 87 or something. It's very warm. We don't cool off really until Wednesday.
Well, enjoy it because before you know it, it's gonna be back to the cold. And when the cold comes,
Back to the cold
we'll look
weather.
back on those hot summer days.
Yep, yep. Especially the sunshine, because we don't see too much sun in the winter.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
I mean,
I'm excited about today. So tell us, why did you choose this topic for today?
because there are a lot of single parents out there. My mom was a single parent, and she had a really rough time. In
Mm,
the generation that I was brought up in, um, women with a child or children, um, they had a really rough go,
mhm,
because there weren't many jobs available. Um, the choices were extremely limited, not as they are now, where you have a lot of choices. Even companies are offering daycare, which there was no such word when I was growing up. I remember going with my mom to some of her jobs, and she was cleaning somebody's house, doing their ironing, and taking care of things in their house. Then there was another job where she went to work for the people who owned a bar, but they also lived there, lived behind the bar. So she kind of helped out with both because you did anything you could to
mm.
earn some money. And so I would go with her because there was no one to take care of me. And I was just a tiny kid. So now we have people who are deciding that, oh, I'm just going to be a single parent. And I'm a little concerned at the sort of ease that they make that decision with. And because it's a very rough road to hoe.
Oh yes.
And It's not, you know, it's not, I'm not saying that necessarily a partnered parenthood is always great either. I'm not saying that one is better than the other. I'm just saying one might be a little easier than the other because you can share responsibilities.
Totally.
Yeah. And so I'm a little concerned, as I say, with the ease of becoming a parent is done with these days. And because you don't know what's coming down the road.
Mhm.
So unless you have a really great support system, I would double think that idea. I mean, at one point, I wanted to be a single parent. I wanted to adopt, and when I really looked into it, companies did not offer any kind of child care for you. Um, the person that I worked for at the time, the company that I worked for, or the club that I worked for, would not, absolutely would not tolerate my staying home because my child was ill. And daycares would not accept your child if it was ill.
Oh, wow.
So it was a big squeeze. You know, you couldn't do it. So it's not an easy decision. It's should not be made quickly, and there's a great deal to consider, a great deal to check out, unless you have a tremendously reliable, supportive group behind you who will take your child in case it's ill or if you're ill. And there's just a tremendous responsibility with it. And it sounds nice, it sounds cute. Oh, I'm going to have a little baby to take care of. Won't it be wonderful? Well, if you decide to birth a child, that decision is not an easy one either. A lot of things can go wrong during a pregnancy. And also, you know, you may not be feeling exactly wonderful and on top of the world all the time. And then you have a responsibility to your employer. And so it's, there are a lot of things to think about.
Yes, I can imagine. And back then, there was a completely different world, different mentality, different mindset, than
Yes.
now. And yeah, raising a child might sound cute and all that when the child is smiling and laughing and all cute, but then
Yeah.
the sleepless nights, the changing the diaper, taking care of it, and all
Yes.
that, it's not
Yeah.
all fine and dandy. There's a lot of, just like anything else in life, there's people only see the highlight, but there's so much more that goes in the behind the scenes that are much more require massive, massive commitment of time, of energy, of effort, of resources. And I saw a chart a few years ago. Mind you, it was probably 5, 10 years ago, that said, okay, can you guess what is the cost to raise a child from birth to college age in the US and Canada? Mind you, that was about 10 years ago. So now it's probably higher.
Yeah. Well, I had read one report a number of years ago that it was going to cost over $1 million, basically,
Yeah.
um, from start to finish.
Back then it was anywhere between 250 to $750,000.
Right. Right.
The cost of an
And
house.
that, yeah, yeah. Back then, that's what I looked at as well. I was astounded because just the adoption fee was 15,000.
Wow.
So, you know, where was I going to come up with that kind of money? And how was I going to live? And as I said, I did not have an employer who was at all
Mm,
uh, supportive and would not have been supportive. So it was a very heavy, heavy decision. And all these people that are running around saying, "Oh, but the child is so cute, and I can buy it such cute little outfits." You know, if you want to buy cute little outfits, get one of those larger than life dolls, and you can dress it in any way you want to.
yeah.
You know, that's why I think it's such a good idea for the high school students to the school sponsors or a class will sponsor or put on a pretend parenting where you have to
Absolutely.
either carry a yeah where you have to carry around either a 5 pound bag of sugar or sometimes it's even a lifelike doll and the kids are finding out real quick that because they're monitored for the care of that so-called child, you know, diapering, feeding, sleeping, more diapering, feeding, sleeping. And what do you do when the child does nothing but cry?
Yeah.
So, you know, it's really a huge interruption on your life. And I know a lot of the students said, boy, by the time that that test period was over, I was real glad to give back the 5 pounds of sugar
Oh yeah.
because it was just too much. I didn't have a life for myself. Everything revolved around that child. And I didn't like that. I didn't like having to share the spotlight. I didn't like having to share my time. I didn't like not having any time off to do what I want to do, be out with my friends and just party. There was no life for me.
Mm.
So yeah, that's pretty much what it's like. So that's why I picked this subject because I think that too many people enter parenthood without fully researching um, what it's like and how much it'll cost and all of the what ifs. You know, what if I'm sick and I can't take care of my child? Um, it just doesn't stop when you have a child to take care of. It just doesn't end. It's 24/7, 365.
Oh yeah.
So and I feel bad for my mom because she gave me the choice when I think I was about 5. She said, I don't know if I can take care of you.
Oh wow.
And so maybe I could send you down to your Aunt Frances, who Aunt Frances worked for a Catholic church. And the Catholic church there had an orphanage. So she said I could send you to be down with Aunt Frances. You wouldn't see her always, but and they may not treat you well there. And I asked, why would anybody want to be mean to me? And she said, because you're poor, because you don't come with money. If you don't come with money, you're going to be asked to do the hardest jobs, the jobs that nobody else wants to do, and you can't cry and get your way because they won't listen, they don't care. So you can stay with me, but I don't know how I'm going to feed us.
Mm.
And so the choice, you know, I don't know what you want to do, she said. And so it was a horrible thing for me to have to make that decision. Of course, I'm going to stay with my mom. You know, you'll always stay with the one that takes care of you and that you've only known. You've only known that person. So it was a rough go for her. And I look back on that and I think about the choice that she made when she decided to keep me after she gave birth. And it was a very difficult birth. She died once uh, during the labor and they brought her back. I was just over a month early. And so they saved her life. They saved my life. And at that point, she said, I had to decide whether to keep you or to give you away. And I decided to keep you because um, I was your mother. So that decision, I think, haunted her for a very long time. And things were not very pleasant for us. You know, the responsibility that she had as a single parent not knowing where she was going to get any work, not knowing how she was going to care for me. There was a time when I actually stayed at home by myself all day long while she went to work because there was no choice. There was no one to take care of me. So she locked the door, told me to lock the doors after she left and not open them for anyone. And she gave me some little chores to do. And by the time she got home, the sun had long set. And I gave her a bowl of cereal because I felt bad she was hungry. And so it was a real tough road for her and for me because, of course, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, she was in a bind.
Mm.
And she felt lonely. She had no one to talk to, no one to help her make decisions, and she needed that very, very much. So it was lonely and very disparaging for her to have a child. Now, she also had my half brother, but he was a great deal older than me. And so by the time I was 5, he went and joined the Navy. So
So you enjoy
there
what?
again, he joined the Navy.
Ah, okay, okay.
Yeah. And so he wasn't around to help her. We lived in a log cabin in the middle of nowhere in the country. It was my uncle's hunting cabin. It was very hard to heat in the winters, and we had horrendous winters. There was no indoor plumbing, there was no electricity, there was nothing. We had a
Wow.
kerosene stove, and every once in a while, a big truck would come up and put kerosene, I guess, in this big container outside our house, so that at least she could cook and didn't have to use a fire to make a meal. But there was no refrigerator. There, as I said, there was no running hot and cold water. You had to go outside to get your water, and in the summertime we had to raise our own food. And I remember there was a time also that when my half brother was still home, she said to him, "It's been a very hard summer, and I wasn't able to can any food or very little food. And so we're going to have to, unless I can find a job, we're going to have to eat bread with lard. Um, and little Kathy, you'll get to eat what she wants first, then you, and then me. That's how it has to go. That's how it has to be divided up." She said, "I'm hoping we can find a job." She was hoping my brother could find a job, but he was still in high school. So things were really tough. And nowadays, you probably don't face that kind of decision, but yet there are many women who do. They face
Mm.
very difficult financial situation. So there are tough decisions to be made that way too.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So you said there was no eating. So how would you guys keep warm in the winter there?
Well, you had to cut wood. And where we lived, there was a forest. So we had to go in the forest, haul some logs out, chop them up, and then chop firewood. Winter was always um, the determining factor in everything that you did. Excuse me, even during the summer, because then during the summer, you had to chop enough wood to keep you warm during the winter.
Mm-hmm.
So, winter was always the determiner. You had to hope that you had a good garden because there wasn't a garden hose that you could water the garden. You had to depend strictly on the weather. And if the weather decided it wasn't going to give you any rain, your crops died. Um, Conversely, if in the wintertime you had 6 or 7 feet of snow and everything got delayed weather-wise, your garden got flooded with the melting snow, and nothing would grow because you can't grow anything in mud.
Mm-hmm.
So lots of tough decisions when you're going to live that kind of life, and yet she didn't have any choice.
Sure.
It was a place to live, you know. It was a roof over our head.
What did that very rough environment teach you? And what did you learn through
It
that?
taught me, oh boy, I learned a lot. And I learned it through osmosis. It wasn't anything much that my mother told me. It was the actual living
Mm,
every single day. Trying to even pick up a piece of wood because I was a tiny kid. I was premature. I was really small. And so here's this picture of this little tiny child trying to carry one little log of wood, thinking she was helping. And she
mm.
wanted to help, and she wanted to have things not so hard for her mom. Um, but that was all that I could do. And it taught me resilience. It taught me respect for nature. It taught me that not everything is as you want it to be, and you have
Mhm,
to live through it. You have to be resourceful.
mhm.
You have to be practical. You have to be logical. And you can't bank on tomorrow because tomorrow's not here. And yesterday's gone. So all you have is today
And right now,
and right now. Yes.
indeed. Wow.
So all of those things were really important to me. And I didn't really realize them until after I got out on my own um, and had to make a living for myself. But I did learn resilience.
And that
And I
res-
learned
and that resilience helped you a lot when you went on your own and built a life for yourself.
absolutely, absolutely. It taught me not to quit,
Mm,
never quit. And that was one thing my mom would always tell me, never quit. I know it's hard, but keep going. Just keep going. And even today, once in a while, I'll say that to myself. Yeah, you know, this, whatever it is, this is a real load. Keep going. Don't give up. Don't
mm.
quit.
Absolutely. Wow. Um, what advice would you give to people who are now, you mentioned earlier that giving birth is a massive, massive life-changing decision. And nowadays we see more and more youngsters getting pregnant or getting, bringing in new babies into this world. What
Hmm.
tip or advice do you have to people who might, especially the youngsters, who might be considering, hey, I want to have a kid. It's okay for me to be a single parent because they romanticize having a baby. They see only the positive, the cute smile, and all that. What
Hmm.
real life example do you have for those people?
The first thing I would say is if you want to partake in such a huge decision and all of the aspects of that decision, then you must be responsible enough to do a tremendous amount of research. Again, how much does it cost to have a child? And who will support you if you can't go to work? Because not all pregnancies are easy. You don't know what kind of pregnancy you're going to have. Everybody says, oh, it's so normal. Well, yeah, it's so normal. But also, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of women have died in childbirth or just shortly after. It's not an easy thing. It's not a light responsibility. There are many times when I've helped out friends who were pregnant and just feeling awful, nauseous, exhausted, having great deals of trouble with their back or their legs. They can barely move. Some of them were even ordered to bed rest. Who's going to support you during that time should that happen to you?
Mm-hmm.
Who's going to take care of you? Who's going to pay your bills? Are you going to be able to move home with your parents or another relative? And when the baby comes, who's going to pay for that baby? You think that you're going to go to the hospital, give birth, and go home. Well, the hospital needs to be paid. The doctor needs to be paid. Who's going to pay those bills? Do you have insurance? How much does it cost to carry insurance for you and a baby? And what's the cost of setting up all of the things for a baby that you didn't get in that wonderful baby shower or two that people gave for you? They're not going to give you everything. They can't.
Mm-hmm.
So how much does it cost to get a bassinet? How much does it cost to get a car seat? Car seats are very expensive for infants. How much does it cost for all of the diapers? Are you going
Yeah,
to have, pardon me?
they're expensive, I know.
Yeah. Are you going to have cloth diapers or are you going to have throwaway? And probably most young people are going to say, definitely throwaway. I'm not washing diapers. Well, yeah, you better think again, because the cost of diapers, packages of diapers, is just humongous.
Yeah.
What are you going to do if your child needs a special formula rather than a normal bottle of milk? How much does that cost? Is it covered by insurance? You have to know all of those things. You have to plan on what if and look forward to things that go wrong, because it can happen very easily, very
Mm-hmm.
easily. So, as I say, if you want to partake in such a huge responsibility, then do yourself a great favor and look at all those costs, because life deals around money, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And not just the cute little clothing that your child is going to wear, and not just the cute little stroller that it's going to ride in when you're going to walk down the street with it. Um, there are dark sides to everything. Look at them. Don't be afraid to look at them. If you're afraid to look at the dark sides now, chances are you may not be a very good parent. What
Totally.
kind of parent are you going to be?
Absolutely. There's so many factors that need to be taken into consideration. It's definitely a life-changing, life-transforming decision, not only for you, but for your entire family, because it affects everyone.
Yeah, right. And it'll affect that child because
Big
it
time.
will affect your mood. Big time. It affected my mother's mood.
Yeah.
My mother became, she was very lonely.
Yeah.
She was scared. She always lived in fear. And so that fear and that anger and that pent up resentment at not having any kind of a nice life was taken out on me.
Yeah. No, seriously,
You
because
know,
bringing a child that you're not ready to raise is
mhm.
actually a massive disservice for the child. You're
Yes,
putting someone through a
yes,
lot of hardships for what?
yes.
It's being
The
very
day that I
selfish
left,
and
yeah,
careless.
yeah. When I left home, I was 19.
Mm,
And I left home because the situation between my mother and I was intolerable. It was just absolutely intolerable. And so I didn't tell her. I had a job, but I didn't tell her I was going to leave. I just bought a few things that I thought I'd need. I bought an iron. I think I bought a kettle. I mean, I didn't know what I was going to need. I had no place to go when I decided I was going to leave the small town and go to the big city, because there were opportunities there. And my mother's first reaction when I told her I was leaving, she couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
And she said, "You're never, ever, ever going to make it on your own. Never." And I said, "Well, I guess we'll have to see." And then she said, and she had told me this many times during my childhood. This was not the first time I heard this. As a matter of fact, it was such a burden for me to hear this every time I heard it. I didn't have to keep you. I could have given you away.
Oh, wow.
And so finally, on the day that I'm leaving, she said, "I didn't have to keep you. I could have given you away." And I said, "Who in the hell ever said you did me a favor?"
Yeah.
And so I packed my bags. I called a taxi. She stood at the front door and she said, "You'll be back. You mark my words. You'll be back. You'll never make it on your own." And I thought, it'll be a cold day in hell when I come back.
Oh, there's no way. Absolutely. Yes.
So think about that. Think about the impact that you are making on your child, emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally. It's a tremendous, tremendous decision.
Big burden, especially the environment the child is raised, the words you tell them, that affects their trajectory in life, whether they're going to be successful or not.
Mhm.
Because
That's right.
the personality, the character, the self-confidence of a child is basically made the first 7 years of their lives. That's what every study
Right.
says. So you have to be very careful what
Right.
words you speak to your kids and around them.
And how are you? Think about this. How are you when you're having a bad day?
Yeah.
What are you really like? And I'll bet you don't really want to be honest with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And on those days, think about maybe your siblings or your parents or your, I don't know, teachers or your employer or your coworkers. How many times in that day when you felt like hell, either emotionally or physically or both, how many times were you kind?
Mm-hmm.
How many times did you extend yourself to be kind to others? Because that's how you're going to treat a child.
Indeed.
And you're going to resent that child for being there. And it's not the child's fault.
Totally. Wow.
So think about that. Think about the ugliest day you've had and how did you react to it? How were you? Was it a time when someone in your family or someone close to you died? How did that affect you? Because as it affects you, it's going to affect your child. Your emotions are going to come off onto them. And most of what they learn is not going to be so much through what you say, but through what you do and how you treat them. So always think about the worst day that you've had and how you treated others. Because that's how you're going to end up treating a child. Doesn't make any difference how old you are. Could be 20, you could be 40. Excuse me. It's your choice on how you behave and what lessons you've learned. And when you're 20 or 22 or 24, you're still really not that mature unless you've had a hard life and you had to grow up. You had to grow up in a hurry.
But even then, nothing prepares you with the realities, responsibilities of raising a child.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
They
Nothing
don't
can prepare you for
they
that.
don't teach that in school, not on TV. So you gotta
Yeah,
go through it.
right. And even with carrying around a 5-pound bag of flour or sugar or this look like real life baby, um, how long did that last?
Mm-hmm.
Did that last 2 weeks? Did it last a month?
Yeah, for most people, a week is more than enough. I mean,
Yeah.
for most teenage, especially youngsters that are considering or romanticizing the fact of having a kid that young and being a
hmm
single parent.
hmm And looking at whomever you're choosing to be with at the time,
Mm-hmm.
whether it be if you're a girl and you've got a boyfriend and you just think he's an absolute dream. Oh, I just want to be with him for the rest of my life. Or vice versa. The guy looks at the girl and says, oh, I'd really like to be with her for the rest of my life.
Mm.
And something comes up,
Yeah.
something in the family or a great big problem. How do you handle it?
Mm-hmm.
How do you know at that age when you don't really know that person 24/7, 365? How do you know how they react to situations? Are they good with money? Do
Mm-hmm.
they know how to handle money? Do they know how to balance a budget? Do they know how to be practical, logical, and realistic? Do you know how to do those things? Do you know the real definition of realistic? Do you know the real definition of responsibility? Do you know the definition of a balanced budget in your house?
Mm-hmm.
Your parents have taken care of everything, or your parent has taken care of everything, even if you had to go out and work a little bit to help support the family.
Totally.
Do you know, you know, you're going to have to pay rent, you're going to have to pay electric, you're going to have to pay for heat. In a lot of cases, you're going to have to pay for transportation. How much does it cost to have a car? How much does it cost to insure that car? How much does it
Yeah.
cost to take care of that car in a responsible manner? Not just letting it go and go and go until it falls apart, and then you end up with this ginormous bill of something that maybe you could have prevented, 6 months or 8 months down in the back. All of those things. Think about the responsibilities and the pressure that puts you under.
Totally. Absolutely. This is something that they really need to really think about it long and hard, because this is completely going to change their life.
Absolutely.
And if they're not ready, there's absolutely doing a disservice to themselves, to the child, and to the world by bringing another human being that is going to have a life of hardship that he or she does not deserve.
Right. My mother never once, that I ever recall, gave me a compliment. My mother never once said, "Good job," or "You did well on that," or "You look nice today."
Mm,
She didn't have it in her to give that kind of response. Number one, she wasn't brought up with it, so she didn't know it. And
mm-hmm.
number two, she didn't feel it. Emotionally, she did not feel it. Emotionally, she was scraping ground most of the time. I didn't realize that. I had no knowledge of that. I was so busy trying to live my own little life and trying to grow up and learn that I didn't have time to think about her. And that's an awful responsibility to put on a child, is to carry your emotional baggage.
Mm-hmm.
Terrible thing to do. Horrible thing to do.
Sure. So when you left on and to go and live on your own and leave your mother in your town, later on, did you come back to visit her frequently, or at least keep in touch with her? And did you, you know, get on a good terms with her later on in life, or?
Mhm. Well, my mom was old when she became pregnant with me.
Mm,
So we didn't have a real long time together. She died um, when I was only 36.
okay.
So she did call me once when I had been gone from the house for probably, oh, I don't know, a year and a half. And she threatened to commit suicide. But she had done that before. Nobody cares about me. Nobody gives a damn about me. I'm going to kill myself. And I just thought I'd call and let you know.
Mm.
And I was getting ready at that point. I was waiting for a boyfriend to come and pick me up for a class that we were taking together at night in a technical school. And I had a long day. I had heard this threat several times. I had felt the heavy weight of my mother for so long, and I was trying to be happy in spite of it all. So when she said that to me, I'm going to kill myself, I said, you know, you're over 21. You go ahead and you do whatever you want to do. Because if that's what's going to make you happy, you go ahead and do it. I have nothing to say about it. It's your decision.
You told her that?
Well, yes, I did. I said, that's your decision. If that's what you want to do, go do it. And I said, what will happen is that I will just have to come home and clean up the mess, like I always do. Because, you know, your son, my brother, doesn't give a damn about either of us.
Is he still alive?
So there isn't, no, now he's dead. And we never had a good relationship because of his irresponsibility and many other things. But I said, so I'm going to have to come home and clean up the mess. I'm going to have to miss more work. You know, you almost lost 2 jobs for me because you wanted me to come home all the time. You were sick. You were sick. You were sick. Catherine, you got to come home. You've got to come home. I'm so sick. And I would run home. And finally, the boss said, I can't give you any more time off. And if you need all this time off in the future, you'll have to find another job. So I said, I can't keep running home just because you're lonesome. So if you're going to kill yourself, you go right ahead. And I'll just come home and clean up the mess. She said, what mess? I have a clean house. And I said, I've learned a little bit about people who commit suicide. It's not a pretty thing. You don't just fall asleep. And then I told her all the grim facts about how people who are committing suicide with pills and booze or whatever they had to complete the act with, how they very often choke on their own vomit.
Mm.
So I said, that's how people are going to find you. And what are you going to do when your bowels evacuate and your bladder lets go? You think that's going to be pretty? That's not a mess. Who's going to clean up your house? It's going to have to be me. So if this is what you want to do, you go right ahead and do it. Just let me know, or call John, call somebody, and give them my phone number so they can let me know that you've completed it.
Wow.
And of course, she never did. I had enough by that time payment. I had enough. I had more than I could handle.
Sure.
And about a year or 2 after that, I was talking with her on the phone, and I called her every week without fail. And I sent her letters, and I sent her a card, but I was always in contact with her.
Were you sending her money too to support her?
If I could, I did, but I was earning very little money and rents were very high.
Mm-hmm.
So I had barely enough to take care of myself, and I wasn't living the high life. I just had a little tiny studio apartment, and I slept on the floor for about the first 18 months of living in this apartment. I slept on the floor. I didn't have anything to sleep on. Hardly had a chair to sit on.
Yeah.
So she called, or we talked a particular Saturday, I remember, and she said someone had come to visit her that she had known many years before, and they were asking her about her children. And she said, "Oh, I have a daughter that's living in the big city now, and I have my son is still around." And she said, "Oh, I'm surprised that your daughter didn't stay home." And my mom said to me, I told her, I think I was the cause of that. So she finally recognized, after that horrible discussion of telling her to kill herself if that's what she wanted to do, she finally realized that I had had enough. So I took care of her until the day she died. And I took care of her in the best way I could. She had had a massive stroke. She was in a coma for about 4 days after the stroke because my brother never checked on her, and the neighbor lady discovered her on her kitchen floor. So I sat with her in the hospital all those days, and then had to make all the arrangements when she came out of the coma to bring her to the big city for rehab. And then I had to run back and forth to the nursing home constantly. I was there 3-4 times a week. So I don't want anyone to think that just because we didn't have a good relationship that I didn't take care of her, because I did. I did the best I could under the situation that I was in. And my boss at the time was still that nasty old man who said to me, "You are not ever going to be away from your job to go and look after your mother."
Wow.
He said, "Know that right now." And so we did all that. We finally sent her back home after about a year. And she was here for 6 months, and about 7 months later, she died.
Of natural causes or the after effects of that stroke?
It was the after effect of the stroke, because she wasn't that old. She was only 72, I think. So I'm sure that the stroke probably did her in. And my brother put her in the nursing home because he couldn't take it. It's too much for him. She's calling me all the time, and I have to go over there all the time. And I said, "Yeah, poor baby." So he put her in the nursing home, and so I had to make all the arrangements for the funeral. I had to have her brought back to the big city for her funeral arrangements. I took care of the whole thing, and he did nothing, as was his usual mode of operation: do nothing.
And before your mother ascended, did she try to get closer to you, be nicer, kinder, and ask for forgiveness?
No, no, no. Saying I'm sorry for my mother was impossible.
Mm.
That was never. And she stayed. I tried to find a place for her to live closer to where I lived, not in the same city, because things were too expensive and she wouldn't have been able to afford it. And there was no way in God's little green creation that I was going to live with her. But she wouldn't even put up with that. No, no, I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying here. And again, not realizing how much easier it would have been for me. It was just what was convenient or comfortable for her.
Mm-hmm.
So you see, those are all part of the problems that you can come up with when you've decided to be a single parent.
Mm-hmm. So in all these very tough condition that you grew up, was it any time that you say, you know what, screw that, I'm sick and tired of it, I want out of this? Did you ever consider that, or that never crossed your mind?
You mean for me to take my own life?
Yes.
No, I didn't consider that. The lowest point I ever came to was just before I went to work for the man in the private club, the social club.
Mm,
I almost went home because I didn't have any money.
mm,
I didn't have a job, and things were tough. And just about the time when I started to think, maybe I better go home. Maybe she was right.
mm.
And that was the lowest point because, there I was on Christmas Day or Christmas night, Christmas Eve night, lying on the floor on sleeping bags that people had loaned me right in front of the heater and thinking, this is an awful way to spend Christmas.
Sure.
But I never had a nice Christmas. But this was worse. I didn't have any relatives who cared enough to become involved, to say, hey, why don't you come to our state and visit us for the holiday?
Friends, colleagues,
Or
no?
even, no, no, you don't have too many friends in a great big city.
That's true.
You don't have too many friends. People are not inclusive. They
Mm,
are concerned with their family, and that's the long and the short of it. They don't really care about others. They don't include others. It's a very family oriented area where I am, and there's nothing wrong with being family oriented. I just think that there's something a little twisted
mm.
when you don't include outsiders, when you don't make room for other people to come into your life.
How did you, what made you keep going?
Never give up, never give up, never give
Mm,
up,
wow,
never quit. Things will get better. Never give up.
indeed. Amen. That's a powerful reminder for all of us, including
Yeah.
myself.
So
Yeah.
so when my mother died, I didn't cry.
Mm. You feel a sense of
There were
relief?
there was a huge relief. Yeah, a huge relief. And there was a rejoicing in a way in the fact that she no longer had to feel so displaced,
Mm,
that she no longer had to feel so lonely, that she no longer had to keep chasing me, if you will. It's probably a poor choice of words, but to come and live with her or let her move in with me.
mm-hmm.
Now she was free. And she was free to go to people perhaps on the other side whom she recognized and she knew, and perhaps they could all get together, and her loneliness would be over.
Mm-hmm. Wow. What a story.
Well,
Thank you
think
for,
about that when,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, think about that when you're going to have a child, because a child isn't just uh, somebody who's to age of 3 and then you don't know where the picture goes from there. The picture goes a long, long, long
Oh,
way.
yeah. Those first few years are, I mean, deciding factor of how the child ends up in life.
Right, exactly.
Wow. Thank you for sharing this powerful, 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 and not easy part of your life with us. I am humbled and honored for you to trust me and come share that story. Open your heart to me, to my audience, all that. And you are truly amazing. You're truly special. Thank you for that. And yeah, I'm looking forward for the next conversation. I have another call in a few minutes. Have a fantastic, fantabulous evening. Jayden, you've been amazing. Good boy. The last hour sitting on mommy's shoulder.
Yeah,
Go
yeah,
spread
he's
your
getting
wings
ready to go to
and
bed.
play a little bit, big boy.
Yeah.
Leave mommy alone.
Well, it's a pleasure to be with you as well, Payman, and it's a privilege to
Thank you.
share. It's a privilege to share because I really don't want to see people make mistakes, and big ones, huge ones.
Absolutely.
If I can do anything to prevent that,
Mhm.
and keep people smiling, keep people to be positive about life, I will do it. That's why I love talking to groups. I love sharing stories with people. Um, that's what we're all here for.
Ab-
And it was not an easy thing for me to have to remember tonight. It was not. Um, it was not. It was just not easy. But my discomfort may have made a difference in someone else's life.
That's it. That's what we are here for. Even if we can inspire just one person, either
That's
to
right.
inspire them, put them back on track, give them back belief in themselves, hope in humanity, whatever.
That's right.
And then they go on to help someone else and so on and so forth.
Right.
We can create a ripple effect around the world. This is what this podcast is all about. This is what I started when I first started my podcast, even though at the time I had no idea, no plan, no direction. Ultimately, it's what I wanted to do, to inspire people through
Mm-hmm.
stories.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And you're
Right.
one of
And
the
thank you for doing that. Thank you
thermal.
for the courage that you have to do that, Payman.
Thank you.
It's a great service.
You're welcome.
We
Thank you. I
appreciate
mean,
you.
this is, as I say, always say, we all have our fair share of dark times, challenges, hardships, heartbreaks, tragedy, and all that. Sure, it hurts a lot when we go through them, but then they become our story, and then our story becomes our gift, and then our gift becomes
Mm-hmm.
our duty and responsibility. We both know that life is a school. We come here to learn lessons, become better, wiser. But that's only 5% of the reason we are here. The 95% is taking those gifts, those wisdoms, those lessons, and sharing them with the world. Not just the
Right.
world, but even people around you. Because if you can inspire and help just one person, then that's successful. So
Right.
thank you for
One
doing
good
that.
thing to remember that also, Payman, is that we are exactly where we're supposed to be at every given moment.
Absolutely.
So stop saying, sharing your life and saying, "Oh, why am I here?" And I should leave here, and stop feeling pity for yourself,
Yes.
and know that you are exactly where you're supposed to be at every given moment with the people that you are with.
Totally. And where you are now is preparing you for the next phase. Everything is like a progression.
Right, exactly. So thank you again. Thank you for all your love and your kindness and your support.
Thank you.
It's greatly appreciated.
Pleasure's all mine. Thank you. Keep shining your light. I salute you. You're a true leader with a heart. Keep blessing the world with your presence, your impact, your message, Jayden. You know, and stay safe, stay awesome. God bless you, my wonderful friend. We're definitely gonna be doing more and more of those beautiful conversation where we're sharing your gifts with me and with my audience
Well,
in the world. And with Jayden, because I'm
I
sure
look
Jayden
forward to it.
is captivated, is listening, is not missing any word. Right, Jayden?
That's right.
All
Isn't that
right.
right? Thank you.
Pleasure.
Take
Have a
care.
one. Take care. You too. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye bye.